What's up, everybody? This is us again. This is Matthew Mason, proud host of the Hot Conversations with School Leaders podcast. Just so you remember, hot means honest, open, and transparent. I'm always going to do my best to bring individuals on here who I believe are going to give you free game, that we're going to give you the best that we can give you of what it's like to be a school leader, but also be fathers, husbands, to be wives, to be mothers, to be thinkers, to be all the things that go along with this. We are more than just school leaders. We are human, and I think it's because we're human that we're good school leaders. So, individual I have with us today is an individual I met back when I was a teacher in school. We've known each other for a good amount of time now, and I have been, I don't even know if I've told him this, but it's been cool to watch his ascent into leadership. The one thing I'm going to say about him is everywhere he goes, culture gets better, right? And that might even be the title of this episode, is that everywhere he goes, culture gets better. And then we're also going to talk about what it's like to lead, not just in the United States, but also lead in somewhere other than the United States. I'll let him share a little bit about himself in a second. But have with us today, Dr. Silvanus Thrower. How are you, sir?
I'm good, sir. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, man. Excited for it. Definitely excited for it. So, Thor or Dr. Thor, I'll make sure I put some respect on
Man,
your
come
name.
on. You already know what it is between us, so.
Oh, I know. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and I'm looking at some of the questions that I have here. But tell us about your journey, because I think something that you're going to give the audience is you, to me, and you tell me if I'm wrong, you got a different way of getting into education. And then I will also tell you, you are one of the ones who gave me the courage to say, hey, I don't necessarily have to stay here. I had thought about teaching in another country like years ago. But in all honesty, I think I was kind of scared. It was like, I don't know what that's like. And I think after seeing you do it, I was like, oh, yeah, that's an option. Like just seeing somebody else do it, now it became an option to do. So go through your leadership journey for our audience.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mason. So, like I said, I'm Dr. Silvanus Thrower. I'm really a career switcher. Had a lot of experience with community mental health. I owned a group home for 11 years. And then I decided to become a special education teacher in 2014. And it's ironic because we're sitting here today because, you and I worked together that my first year at Brooklyn Middle School. When I became this, I was actually hired as a sped science teacher.
I remember that.
Yeah. So I started my leadership journey replacing you as an admin aide during my second year teaching. So also
going to admin aid. Now, I told you during the interview, I'm going to jump in sometimes because, again, as people hear what you did, I want people to see that, like, no matter what route you take, you can still get to all these different spots. So what is an admin aid? Because you and I both did this for a little bit of time.
So an admin aid is a teacher filling the void for admin during their planning. So we were able to learn from our administrators and assist the administrators with some of the light discipline, contacting parents, doing discipline letters. We were able to see things from an admin's point of view while we were still teachers, but doing it on our planning period.
Yep.
We got the radio. Once we got the radio, things tend to change. Yeah. So we were still a teacher, but our colleagues didn't view us as a teacher anymore. They viewed us as part of the admin team. So, walking
How
in
did
the
you feel about that?
It was cool because of my personality. I just had to adjust. Like when you walk into the teachers' lounge, instead of the conversation continues. People were like, "Ooh, hold on." They pause their conversation because now you're part of the admin team. So it was cool, but it was a great experience. And shout out to Henrico County for giving me the opportunity initially. Yeah. So, but also in my second year, my good brother, Dr. Herb Monroe, he came over to Brooklyn Middle School for a training or something like that. And we stopped and talked in the hallway, which was outside. We were outside on the outside campus, but he invited me to come and shadow him for a day when he was the principal at Henrico High School, man, and witnessing him with his teenagers and how he operated his relationships with his students and with his teachers, it it showed me that he and I had similar styles that I had from when I owned a group home, and how I treated my young men. So that initially gave me the confidence to say, you know what, I could do this. And so that allowed me to go ahead and say, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and get my admin endorsement. So being an owner and executive director of a group home, it was almost like being an administrator, just on a smaller scale.
What
So
was that? Like, what did it entail for you to do? I feel like you're about to jump into that, but what is that? What does that job entail?
it so it's similar to so I was there. I was the principal of the home. I was the owner. I was a father to those young men um, that I had in my home. So these were not wards of the state, but social services placed these kids in my home, and I was responsible for their day to day. I was their father. I even enrolled them in school, even
Wow.
though they had
Okay.
a legal guardian as a social worker. The social workers allowed me to fill that um, that parental role for them to make sure they had all their needs met. And so it was a 24-hour business. And so, of course, I had to, hire my staff, train my staff, have my monthly faculty staff meetings. And we also had to do service plans, monthly reports, quarterly reports, which was very similar to what I did as a SPED teacher.
Yeah. Okay.
Creating goals for my young men. So that transition from me from group home to being a SPED teacher was really easy.
So I,
Uh,
I I will say this, and I know I'm jumping in with you more than anything. That is something that I saw a lot when you came in, right? Was because when you came in, I immediately saw that I was like, oh yeah, he can do this admin thing. Because like when I came in, I didn't have that type of background. So
mm,
I think one of the best things for any administrator, or especially when you see administrators who were special education teachers, like they are really good with keeping things in line and sticking by um, different, what's the word I'm looking for? Just different expectations because
yeah,
it's like they have to. You got to stick by the law. You got to make sure kids are getting everything they need to get to. So that when they
right.
transition to becoming an administrator, like they know what they're doing. They're ready to roll. And I think you slid right into that when you came into the building.
Yeah, man. And just classroom management, man, that was like second nature to me. So, man, I had teachers that I was a collaborative teacher with. Actually, I had two teachers I was collaborating with. One was about to retire, and one was newer in the game, just like I was. But her classroom management was superior. Didn't have to do much in her classroom. The teacher that was about to retire, I was like the referee. I was the mediator between her and the students. And, not only did she ask me a lot of questions about how you get these kids to do what you tell them to do or to listen to you. And there was not just her, but there was other teachers that came to me as well. And I had to explain to them, you just talk to them like they're human beings and set
Mm-hmm.
expectations, and
Mm-hmm.
be consistent and firm with them. Listen to what they're saying, because sometimes you got to hear their point of view and explain, this is what we need to do in class. And it was second nature to me, man.
Yeah,
Second
yeah.
nature. Um, so,
So what? Go
go ahead.
ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I'm finished.
No. So what then drove you, or I only saying drove? What made you think like? I know you said you went with Dr. Monroe. Shout out to Dr. Monroe. I'm gonna get him on the show too. I'm about to reach out. He is now superintendent in Surrey County, so I'm gonna make sure I get him on here. Um, but what after spending time with Dr. Monroe, was I in Rico when you came up and did that?
No, you had just left. So
Okay,
you left after my first year, and
I
then I
remember
wanted
that.
to
Yes.
visit Dr. Moreau my second year.
Okay.
So and so and it was crazy because shout out to Dr. Nick Barlett as well. So
For sure.
after Dr. Moreau invited me to come shadow him, I'm like, let me go ask Dr. Barlett, if he'll let me. And he was like, sure. So, and I want to also give the admin of Brooklyn Middle a huge shout out to Dr. Nick Barlett, Gina Jones, Shamia
Porsche.
Porsche.
Yeah.
Yeah, they believed in me, man, and they gave me just opportunity after opportunity, and it gave me more responsibility. And then, to be honest, man, plus I saw you doing your thing. I saw you go from admin aide to, I think you got admin intern the next year.
Yeah.
Then you got
Yeah.
AP the next year, and then you became a principal the next year. And I
Yeah.
was like,
It
nah,
went quick.
his footsteps right here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wanted to be on that fast track with you, just
Yeah.
like you
Well,
were.
I appreciate that. And I will say too again, I think you spot on. Shout out to the Brooklyn Middle School admin team. Nick gave me opportunities to be on the safety team. He let me work with Gina. Gina let me do so much of the safety stuff. Like I didn't know what I was doing. She helped me go through that. They were giving me opportunities to go do observations. Porsche was letting me go and like I would go and grab like 10 referrals out about this when we had the paper ones. I grabbed like 10, 15 referrals out. But I think it was you and me and a couple others. We were just hungry. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like we wanted it. And then again, shout out to Herb Monroe because Herb has helped, or Dr. Monroe has helped a lot of people get into the game and become administrators. So once you got that position, admin, you went with Dr. Monroe, like how do you now transition into school leadership at that point? Because I know I know you ended up going to Wilder for a little bit as the AP over there.
Yeah. So he gave me that confidence to go ahead and get my admin endorsement. But being a career switcher, I had to get my teaching license too. So this is gonna sound, wow, but I was going to Virginia Union to get my teaching certification. And at the same time, I went to George Washington University to get my admin endorsement. So I
Did
was
not know
doing
that.
both programs. Yeah, I was doing both programs at the same time. And actually, I was certified to be a principal before I was certified to be a teacher. Yeah, so
Okay.
I was just hungry, man. So then also I became so me and my wife we had separated. So I closed the group home. I closed the group home after my first semester teaching. That was I was stressed financially, physically, and emotionally. Just having that 24-hour business. Plus, and see, you probably didn't notice either. I was my first semester teaching. I would leave from school and go to the group home and work until 11 o'clock at night, maybe 3 or 4 days a week,
Mhm.
and then work doubles, 16-hour shifts on the weekends. So when I left full time,
No, I didn't know that.
yeah, man. So when I left full time, my group home it went downhill. So my program director, um, he had some difficulties maintaining the staff, and we had more complaints in those 6 months of my first year teaching than we had in the previous 10 and a half years. So I was like, you know what? It's time for me to move on. Even though that was
Yeah.
my dream, that was my baby, and
Mhm.
I was making pretty good money too.
Gotcha.
But it wasn't about the money; it was about my peace of mind. So after I got my teaching certification and my admin endorsement, um, I had been in. So at that time, I had did exactly 3 years of teaching. So
Okay.
within,
So hold on, let me ask you a question. So,
yeah.
and this is something I think you just kind of glossed over. So how many children do you have at this point? 'Cause you jumped through a lot of things right there. So you had a group home, you were doing, you were teaching, you were doing double shifts.
Mhm.
You said you were separated at that
So yeah,
time,
yeah. So I had
and
just
you got
separated.
kids.
I separated 2016. So I started teaching 2014. Separated
Okay.
2016, and then by that time, my sons had moved out with their mom. But it was
Okay.
just me and my
Okay.
daughter. So my daughter was
Gotcha.
in middle school at the time. She was going to Fairfield.
So you're still
So,
raising children during this time with
yeah,
all that.
yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay.
But man, the grind was real, man. And so when I closed the group home, I went from making six figures down to 47,000 with a master's degree. So my lifestyle changed. Plus, when me and my wife separated, that was the income that went out the house too. So I had a different grind. And
So
but
what? How do you keep your mind straight during all that? Because I'll be honest and we get this hot conversation. Like myself and my wife, probably around that time and probably the beginning of our marriage, like we had some real tough times. Like it was. I mean, we were at a point where it was like, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and call this right. And I'm, raised church, like divorce is not an option, all that kind of stuff, right?
yeah,
And we were at that point where it was like, look. Like and we've learned so much, come a long way, stood together. That's my best friend.
mhm,
Um, but trying to lead a building, trying to do all these things, and sometimes I feel like you go into work and you try to put the smile on your face, right? Because
mhm,
you telling me all this right now, I would never have known it. Because every time you were in the building, you're the one smiling, you're the one making other people laugh, you're the one making the kids laugh. Like I said, everywhere you go, culture gets better because you just will bring that energy. Will never know that all this stuff is going on and behind the scenes. Like, how you coping during that time?
man. Just to be honest, man, I was raised with a lot of adversity.
Okay.
So having being raised by a single mom, grew up in a rough neighborhood. Um, I had to go out and, my mom was she was a single parent as a teacher. So she didn't make much, at the time she wasn't. So I had to go out and make a way for myself.
Okay.
So no matter
Mhm.
what, I knew that no matter what I was facing, I had to make sure that I was good and my daughter was good,
Okay.
no matter what. So, and then closing the group home and gave me a sense of peace. So
Okay.
that all that stress having a 24-hour business, man, and then now I only have to focus on, me and my daughter. And I've got to add this too. I was also Ubering on the weekends too.
Yes.
So,
You like you're like out now. You like what in the world? Like I wouldn't have known
yeah,
none of this. Like in the time we've known each other, none of. And at the same time though, it makes sense though to me. Like as I'm reading about great people and how you see the greatness of the things that they do, and when you hear that, but it's almost like in order to be a great person, you have to go through a lot of stuff. Like it almost like it's just a prerequisite. Like you're great and you're a role model for others. So because of that, you got to go through a lot of stuff. And for any other people who are listening out there in the audience, like it's not even about there's no excuse to be great. It's just that you can do it. Like almost like you don't quit.
yeah,
Right? Don't
yeah,
quit.
yeah. And to be honest, that's how I raised my kids too. We now
Okay.
you got to be prepared to face those hurdles and take a punch and get up and keep moving.
Yeah.
So man, after those 3 years, man, being in the classroom, and shout out to Dr. Omega Wilson, Dr. McQueen,
Yeah.
um, and Dr. Eager Grant. I mean,
Yeah.
they believed in me. So I met Dr. McQueen and Dr. Omega Wilson at Virginia Union when I was getting my teaching certification.
Okay.
And I remember one day, my last class with Dr. McQueen, she was like, listen, you need to be in administration. And she was like, are you applying? I said, yeah, I'm throwing my name out there. She called Dr. Inga Grant right there in front of me. And she said, y'all better get this man a job. Right. So I had interviewed for admin intern position at Verona High School, but I didn't get it.
Okay.
Right. So, and Dr. Wilson said, don't worry, that one for you.
That's how she
So,
says it. She did the same to me.
yeah, that one for you. So that was in August, I think, when I interviewed for that. That
Okay.
December, I saw L. Douglas Wilder AP position was open, and I applied. And again, I was hungry. I'm like, by that time, me and my wife, we had separated, and we'd been separated for 2 years at that point. And I'm like, man, it's just me and baby girl. I'm Ubering on the weekends and make ends meet. From that lifestyle I was living from the group home, I had to, keep up with my mortgage payments and my car and you name it. I was hungry. So I went in and I killed that interview. I knew I had that job when I interviewed for it.
Love it.
Right. So, and I was Ubering with someone in the car when I got the phone call from HR, and I had to pull over, and man, I sit there and cried, and I'm like, this is what I work for, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So went over to L. Douglas Wilder, man, and I hit the ground running. I went mid-year. Yes, I left Brooklyn in January, I believe, of
Okay.
2018. Went over
I
to
remember
Wilder.
this. Yep, I do remember this. Yep.
And so I didn't have a grade level. I wasn't assigned a grade level. I was floating. I was helping all admin out. And I was able to, which was good because I was able to see from a fresh pair of eyes what we could do to improve our school culture. So spent that semester learning. And so then my first full year as an AP, I was a seventh grade administrator. We didn't move. I was a seventh grade administrator for 3 years at Wilder. And throughout my time, I was the PBIS and RTI administrator,
Okay.
the math administrator. Eventually, I supervised SPED. So I was able to kind of to grow and to just gain experience from those experiences. Just being to me, the seventh grade is the hardest year
I agree.
the kid's life. So
Yep.
being in a Title I school, man, it was rough. I saw everything, but that didn't surprise me.
Yeah.
So being a group home owner, I had kids, man, they had some rough backgrounds.
Yeah.
I also, before I became a group home owner, I was a counselor with a foster care agency. Prior to that, I was a counselor in the Department of Juvenile Justice in the juvenile prisons.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was a counselor in a residential facility in Portsmouth, and that prepared me for all of what I go through with kids.
That's what I'm about to say. I was like, it seems like everything has funneled you to make you prepared for anything.
Yes, man. I don't. So when I hear adults, kind of getting frustrated with what they see from kids, I'm like, y'all, these kids are not bad. You don't know what bad is.
Right.
So I just, man, and from there, man, I just grew. So after 3.5 years of being at Wilder, I moved to John Rolfe Middle School in
Okay.
And so then I became an 8th grade administrator. Then I started, I was a safety administrator. I started supervising science, social studies.
You did everything.
PBIS. Yeah, still do PBIS and RTI. But I ran into a friend. This was, I think, June of 22. She was the girlfriend of, I used to hang out with these couples. Me and my wife hang out with this couple, but I ran into the girlfriend. They had broken up, and she said, "What are you waiting on? We told you about Dodea years ago, and you still haven't jumped on the bandwagon." So I listened to her, and she was like, "Hey, you need to call Dwayne." Shout out to Dwayne Jefferson. He is my good brother, my fraternity brother, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. He was the principal in Tokyo, right?
Okay, that's what I'm about to say. So you said Odea. So all right, so we're right now we're still in the States.
Yeah.
And so what is Odea? Like, what is that?
Dodea. Dodea is
Dodea.
Yes, Department of Defense Education Activity. Okay. So we are a government agency. We have students that are military dependents in many different countries. We even have Dodea schools in the States. Okay. And DC, New York, Virginia, North Carolina, and I believe South Carolina.
Okay.
One in Tennessee, Kentucky line. And then we have schools all over the world. I'm in Okinawa, Japan. We have them in mainland Japan, South Korea, Guam, Italy, Spain, Germany, Bahrain,
Wow.
Yeah, we have schools all over.
And
So,
this
but
is
we
for
are
American students?
for American students. Yep. So
Okay.
when our military personnel are deployed abroad, their families can go to
Gotcha.
their schools.
Gotcha.
They
Okay.
also have the ability to go off base
Yeah.
as well. So like we have Japanese schools that some of our kids go to and become fluent in Japanese.
Okay.
Um,
Awesome.
yeah. So I call my friend Dwayne Jefferson up, and he gave me the rundown, and I'm like, man, that's a big move, right?
Yeah.
But by that time, me and my wife were back together. Um,
Okay.
we were back together. We were separated for 3.5 years.
Okay.
So by this time, we were back together, and my stepson had just graduated. My daughter had graduated. She was at the time a sophomore at North Carolina A&T.
Okay.
Um, so my stepson had just graduated from high school. So at the time, we were empty nesters. We were like,
Okay.
whatever. So I said, hey, would you want to move out the country? And she said, let's do it. So
That's all it took.
yeah. So I put my application in, and less than I started applying in June, but I kept getting notifications that I wasn't qualified, and I'm like, I'm already AP. At this time, I had been an assistant principal for 5 years. Like, what do you mean I'm not qualified? But I wasn't putting all of my transcripts in.
Okay.
So when I got my postmaster certification in admin, I only had 18 credit hours because I already had a
Okay.
master's, right?
Gotcha.
So they required 20 credit hours in a program.
Gotcha.
So I was making a mistake. I kept getting turned down. So once I figured out what I was doing wrong, I had already started my doctoral program at that point.
Okay.
So I added that transcript, and the first job I applied for after that was the one I eventually got. So I was I became an assistant principal at Kadena Middle School on Kadena Air Base in Okinawa, Japan. And man, it was a big move, man. But just leading up to that, I had family, I had friends. Why you got to go way across the world, man? That's a big move. You ain't worried, scared about what's gonna happen? No, you know. And that idea of getting out of your norm or jumping
Yeah.
outside of your comfort zone is what holds people back.
Yep.
I
I
was
agree.
totally loyal to Henrico County because Henrico County gave me plenty of opportunities, right?
Yep.
But the opportunity to live in a foreign country on a military base, work on a military base, getting paid a lot more money, and having free housing, you couldn't. I had to jump at that opportunity.
So you saying all that, I'm like, and again, like where I'm at, hear me. So I ain't sitting here saying I wouldn't. But it's things like that, man. Like you stepping outside your comfort zone, like I said, also is also an encouragement to others, right? Because it's like, man, like what are you missing out on because you're not willing to just do something different, right? Like even if it fails, whatever it is you're trying to do,
Yeah.
now at least you know, right? At least like I can say I tried to do it. But a lot of times that's where our mind immediately goes. Instead of being like, I was reading somewhere, it's like, but what if you succeed? Like, you know what
Boom.
I'm saying? Like, what happens if you thought like that? Like, man, what if I do this thing and I am like wildly successful at
Well,
this?
it's funny you
And
say that because of course I transitioned mid-year again. So all of my transitions have been
okay, yep,
almost all of them have been mid-year.
okay,
So we landed in Okinawa December 30th of 22.
okay,
So we started a new year in a foreign country. So I had a teacher pick us up from the airport and drop us off at the hotel. And he handed me the keys to the school. He said, "Hey, here's your keys." And I said, "What's the alarm code?" to get in the building. And he looked at me like, we don't have alarms in our buildings. What do you mean? And so that let me know then that I was in a whole different ball game.
Whole different ball game.
Right. And so my first day, and Mason, I'm going to tell you, my second day on the job, I said, I'm never going back to public school. Never.
Why is that? What was going on?
Man, just everything was different. So the expectations, of course, high expectations, but the stress level that educators has on them in the States, it doesn't exist here.
So all right, so let's dive deeper into that, because I think that is something that if you're in a school building, you hear people talk about it, but I don't think sometimes people realize, because we're talking to school leaders, but we're talking about people who might want to be leaders. Like, it is extremely stressful sometimes in our positions, and being an educator in America, it oftentimes feels like it's not necessary stress. It's almost like, why are we like stressing over things that in your mind logically is like, why are we doing this? Like, we know, we'll even have research to back why we shouldn't do something, and we'll still just do it. And I also feel like a lot of our education, you can speak to, is it like that where you're at, is so influenced by politics. Like, we can't even, like, it truly, right now in Virginia, I mean, just based on what's going on with the governor and things like that, like, where they're changing our accreditation stuff up again. You know, once you feel like you know what you're doing, someone's going to kind of pull the rug up from underneath that and do something different, and really have no real reason why they do it. It's always going to be, we don't think the kids are learning what they're supposed to be learning. But you can just see that you're using data, and you're being manipulative with data to make things be the way you want them to be, not what's necessarily good for kids or good for adults. So, like, I guess, again, keep going deeper into like what's so different about there. Because I'm not gonna lie, that's a sell right there for me. Less stress, doing the job that I already like doing. Oh,
Man.
yeah.
So I'm gonna tell you. So I was originally hired to work on the Air Force base.
Okay.
Close-knit community. It's a huge base, but it's almost like, I'm going to say it's probably like being in Goochland. It's like a rural community where many people know each other. But it's just, the biggest difference is our students have their basic needs met, which changes the whole landscape of how school looks. So I'm accustomed to working on central and east end of Henrico County. East end of Henrico County, you know, it's a lot of needs out there.
Yes.
Right? So being here is almost like working in Short Pump, the west end of Henrico, and maybe sliding out towards Goochland. It's not as big as Short Pump area, but it's a small community. I really feel like a celebrity here, to be honest.
Okay.
Because everywhere I go, I see, if it's on the basis, I see people that I know, or I see students that that's been at one of the two schools that I worked at.
Okay.
So we have 13 schools here in our district. So, and I'm in the Pacific South. And the Pacific South, their schools are just in Okinawa. So we have 13 schools here. We have Air Force bases, Marine, one Navy, and one Army base. The Army base is the regional base for Dodea Pacific. And so the families and the services pretty much don't mix.
Okay.
Either you're Air Force and you do all activities on the Air Force base, or you're Marine and you do all your activities on the Marine base. It's rare that they mix. So we have 3 middle schools here, 2 on the Air Force base, and 1 on the Marine base. We have 2 high schools here, 1 on the Air Force and 1 on the Marine. And then we have 8 elementary schools that are spread out.
Okay.
So most of our students have two-parent home, live in a two-parent home, and it's just they are. It changes the way that I can lead.
Mhm.
I'm not I don't right in Okinawa. I don't have to make sure that the kids, they come to school angry because they're hungry. I don't have to deal with those stressors in school.
Yeah.
Uh, to be honest, our kids are not angry all the time. They're not cursing and threatening the teachers. The parents are not cursing us out. And another big difference is it's not much. We have district accreditation, not school accreditation.
Okay. Okay.
And so
Gotcha.
that takes the pressure off of the teachers to get the scores,
Yeah.
right? And so, and we have, I'll go into later on, but our accreditation, it's no stressor to meet the needs of someone saying you got to get these scores, these test scores. And so you accustomed to, when you were in Henrico, you had
Yep.
those school improvement meetings where you have to
Yep.
defend your data.
Yep.
And despite all of the the trauma you deal with in school and all the hurdles you got to jump through to get these kids that deal with those, to have those ACEs, those adverse childhood experiences that you got to deal with, despite those hurdles, you still got to get these scores. We don't have to worry about that here. Um, we
So
don't
what do
have a lot
y'all
of.
worry about? Like what is what are your expectations, I guess, as the principal and as the administrative leader in the building? Like what are the expectations? Because it's crazy that again, as you're talking, and it almost seems like trauma, right? Because hearing you say that, my mind immediately goes to, so then what are they doing? Right? Like they don't have it. And it's like, again, I've been so ingrained. Like I've had the state in my building. I've had the person come through every week or every other week, and I'm supposed to pull the data out, or every month, and I pull the data out like you said, and whatever I put into that school improvement plan better be get it done. I need to have the data to back it up. And even the year that we thought we were gonna make our gains, that's when COVID hit. So like we couldn't even end the year off and see all of the hard work that we have put into it. And in the school that I'm at right now, we did do good work. Like we got ourselves out of the red, and the thing was, it was bittersweet because it was almost like once you did that, you got another group of kids coming in. So it's almost like you're trying to ride the momentum of it, but it's a different group of kids. You know what I'm saying? And so you're not going to have the same success. You know what I'm saying? Even though you want that, but you feel like, but I am having success with these kids. Like you said, this kid came in every day at the beginning of the day of the year angry, and now we got it to where they come in and they're saying good morning, and we're having great conversation, and they're no, they didn't pass a standards of learning test, but man, their grades have come up. Like they're not getting in trouble. They're not, but like that doesn't mean anything, in the grand scheme of things for testing. So like what are the expectations of your students?
So we have similar expectations, right? Let me make sure my computer doesn't die on me. Uh, similar expectations, right? However, so we're accredited through Cognia, um, and but we also have call this college and career ready standards that our students are assessed on. Well, they were assessed on that. They just did away with that. The college and career standards. Um, so we're recognized through Cognia as a system of distinction. A system of distinction. That's the district, right?
Okay.
But we also recognize, my high school currently is recognized as a um, College Board AP honor roll as a platinum status. It's the highest status we can have.
Okay.
So the expectations, being an instructional leader is easier here because again, the students get their needs met, so we can hit the ground running, boom, with doing some good work in the classroom. However, Dodea is probably 8 to 10 years behind public schools.
Okay.
In certain
In what
areas.
way?
Data, using data. For example, one thing that I'm working with my school, our teachers now is we are AP driven.
Okay.
We do our thing with AP, right? We offer probably the most AP classes in Dodea, and we get the scores. However, looking at our school report card over the past 4 years, I've only been here. This is my first full year being here as a principal. Again, I was promoted to school principal the end of February last school year. So I did I did two mid-year transitions in consecutive years. I went from Rocco to Cadena Middle School in 2023. And then I did another mid-year transition to a high school in 2024, in the end of February 2024. So I'm still in the process of still learning Dodea, but then also switching schools too. So just seeing where our school report card is in the past 5 years. Again, our SAT scores are good, so we're judged on our college and career standards and our PSAT scores. Right, we're good. We're pretty decent with SAT scores, with the PSAT. Okay. However, our scores are higher for the students that are in advanced classes.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But what I noticed consistently over the past 5 years is students that are on grade level taking Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, the scores are horrible.
Okay. Okay.
And that's just not here. That was Dodea wide.
Okay.
Right? So, and I started digging a little deeper. Why is that? What are we doing for our Tier 1 interventions for students that are on grade level? Right?
Got you.
Because we're AP hungry. We're high achieving. But what about the students that are not taking these AP courses?
Yeah.
So, and what I discovered is Dodea is we use college and career standards, but we're not being assessed. We're using that data point, but we're also using data point for PSAT and SAT, right? And using that vertical alignment between PSAT and SAT. But the assessments aren't aligning. So as an instructional leader, we all learned that your written curriculum has to match what's being taught and has to match what's being assessed on. Yeah. And they're not matching. So my challenge to my staff this year is we have to make sure that we're meeting the Tier 1 needs of academic needs of our students that are not in AP classes. So they're not big on remediation and reteaching.
Okay.
And using those data points. We don't have common assessments. So we don't have a way to check those monthly benchmarks that we accustomed to.
We used to.
Yeah, we don't have those. And so so it's like, what? Yes, we are a platinum status AP school, but what about the other kids? And so, that tickled my fancy a little bit. I'm like, hey, wait a minute.
I know it did.
Wait a minute. What about these babies that are not high achieving students? They're just regular students that they deserve to be able to be successful in school as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where I would say we're lacking, and we're working on that. So I'm currently right now. I mean, it's crazy. I pulled the PSAT data from all of our kids in Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry, and we're going to drill down and figure out what our kids need, and we're going to reteach and remediate. And we're going to self-impose taking another spring PSAT so we can see where we're growing at from the fall to the spring. So
So I want to jump into this now because I appreciate and kudos to you the courage to go into a building and say, hey, and this is you anyway, but for our audience who doesn't know you, hey, we're not meeting the needs, excuse me, of all of our kids. We're going to meet the needs of all of our kids. We're going to figure that out. How how do you feel like in each one of your spots when you've gone and started doing that? 'Cause I feel like you did those same things in other schools too that you were at, is trying to make sure all the kids are being supported. How does your staff handle that change and how do you support them through that?
So, I would say, man, just building a school culture means everything. And so, given just being able to provide, our staff with creating that psychological safety for all stakeholders, students, teachers, and parents, right? And so I've always believed that, having that transformational shift, if the school climate isn't there, we gotta create it. So
Okay.
I'm gonna say most recently, man, just so when I first got to Okinawa, um, the principal that hired me. So I'm gonna say this first. This is a high transition environment because the military personnel they move around every 3 to 4 years, sometimes even up to 6 years.
Okay.
So when when the military personnel leave, so do their spouses that are teachers, the
Oh
secretaries,
wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
office personnel, they leave as well. So we're constantly going through transition.
Okay.
Right? So, but the principal that hired me, my first day on the job was January 3rd. She left to go back to Germany the beginning of March. And it was just me and her. It was just the principal and assistant principal. So
Wow.
I'm like, man, I'm in a new school in a new country. And yes, I was ready to lead, but I hadn't learned the school yet, you
Yeah.
know? And so I was forced to do some things I had never done before.
Mhm.
Being role.
Okay.
Of course, I had interviewed teachers, but I had to hire teachers doing
Yeah.
payroll. I had to fire a teacher, which was crazy. HR does all that work in Virginia.
Right.
Here, we do it. I'm like, well, I didn't hire the teacher, but why do I have to fire the teacher?
Right.
So, but I was forced to do some things, man, that I weren't accustomed to. They did put a interim principal over here that was like a content specialist in the States. But she didn't. She knew Dodea policy, which I did. So they put
Gotcha.
her over here to assist, but she really couldn't do much of anything because she wasn't an administrator on record. I was, right?
Gotcha.
So just being able to come in and hear teachers out, I realized that before I got here, the principal was doing everything by herself for 2 months. So discipline, fell between the cracks. It
Hmm.
was lacking.
Yeah.
Um, she was also, I loved her because she was a straight shooter, but teachers were afraid of her. They didn't want to come to the
Gotcha.
office. It was just like, woo. So it was high tension.
Yeah.
So,
Understood.
and student behaviors were not widespread. They just did a lot of low level to mid level infractions. It was just much of that stuff going around. So, small stuff just added up to be, big ticket items, but
Yeah.
they weren't that bad, right?
Gotcha.
So when I first got there, man, I met with pretty much every teacher
Okay.
to get to know them, to hear what they felt like was what was going well in the school, and also what they felt like we needed to do differently. And so getting that feedback, and being who I am, who I was as a leader, I jumped right into action, and I was everywhere. I was all over school. I didn't have to be, but I made myself visible in the
Yeah.
hallways, in lunch, um, before school, after school. I was there. I was in the classrooms. They constantly saw me, and that was a change that they hadn't had before.
Gotcha.
But for me, it was normal, but for them, it was not. And so, and that was another thing. We didn't have to do lunch duty. We didn't have to be in the hallways during transition.
Yeah.
Kids behave. I didn't have to break up any fights. And that was a big difference. You know, when I was at John Rolfe, man, I broke up fights, man, probably 3 or 4 times a week sometimes.
Yo, one of the schools I was at, like at the school I'm at right now, I remember we're dealing with some behavior stuff. I was like, guys, like having like 3 in a day was like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't like it was okay that it wasn't, but I wouldn't be
Mhm.
surprised. Like you could feel it. You get to the point where you can feel it in the air. Like you
Yeah.
can get the buses are pulling in, and just the way kids are talking to each other, you like,
Hmm.
somebody go down at some point today. And
Yep.
it's just like, I think I told my wife when I was working at Henrico High School, I said, what it does help you become, though, you become really good at not just looking at faces, but studying faces.
Hmm.
Like, so when I say good
Hmm.
morning to a kid,
Mm.
I'm saying that because I want to hear what tone is their answer back. Do they not
Yep.
answer me? Are they just walking past me? Are they like, hey, good morning, to a tone where I'm like, oh, okay, they're having a good morning
Hmm.
this morning? Or is it they suck their teeth or something when I say good morning? Oh, okay, well, something up. And I remember like we were rating them like, hey, I don't know if such and such is having a good day. Somebody want to intercept and just say good morning, like not because they did anything, but now we just want to hit you with as many adults as possible who are showing you that we love you, right?
Yeah.
So now whatever may be going on with you, it's like, you can kind of regroup. So it's interesting, like you said, it was kind of say when I came to Gushin, where you were just like, oh yeah, like I could honestly turn this walkie off and everything will be all right. Like, you know what I'm saying? I
Yep.
technically don't have to be in the hallway because for the most part, everybody's gonna go to class. Like, you know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? Like we're fine. So it's different.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like how you touched on doing those informal check-ins with your students.
Mm-hmm.
That was very important, man, and that was part of what I did. So I made myself a fixture in the building. I got to know all of my students by talking to them, in the hallways, during lunch, having restorative conversations with them when they got out of pocket.
Yeah.
So most importantly, though, I introduced those tier 1 interventions to teachers,
Okay.
and to show them a different way of how to talk to students. So my first 2 days on the job, I was told about these 2 students that were the worst in school. And actually, I met both of them my first day, just on accident, because they were
Okay.
doing some bonehead stuff. But I'm like,
Right.
what's your name? What's your name? And they told me, I was like, oh, okay, y'all are the 2 that are the worst in the school. Man, those kids were by far nowhere near. They were cupcakes compared to what I was used to, right?
Right.
But what I discovered is teachers were so accustomed to students saying yes ma'am, yes sir, and doing what was told to
Gotcha.
them the first time given. And I'm like, y'all, not every kid's gonna respond to it. And so those 2 students were, when they realized that they could do stuff to annoy teachers and get a reaction out of them, they continued to do it.
Right.
So what teachers didn't understand was, find out the why behind kids are doing what they're doing, right? Have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
by doing that, man, I was able to build a relationship with these 2 boys. They went from being the so unquote worst in the schools to some of the best in the school. And I supported them during baseball. So doing that our school curricular activities, I'm gonna go check y'all out. I want you to see I'm gonna be your biggest supporter in this school. And so seeing that, the students saw that, the parents saw that, and the teachers saw it as well. Because we have a lot of kids in school that their parents are teachers. So I was able to not only, expose them to what restorative conversations are like with students, but also I have these restorative conversation cards that
Okay.
where they can use to go through a series of questions to get to the root of why a student is maybe disrupting class. And it helps the teachers become empathetic of what's going on with this student. Let me find out why the student is acting up before I just put them out of class and say, I can't deal with you.
Yeah.
Because that's what was going on. So also introduced the staff to having restorative circles amongst ourselves in staff meetings where
Oh,
teaching
wow.
them
Okay.
they could be vulnerable with each other. So I basically created a family atmosphere. We are
Gotcha.
all
Okay.
here to meet the needs, to meet the mission of to be a support for the military personnel here, right? But we also have to make sure we're giving our students, meeting the basic needs of our students, which were mostly met. But y'all, I also realized too, many of our teachers never taught in the States or taught in the States years ago.
Gotcha.
So they weren't aware of the struggles only by seeing things on the news or having friends in the States to tell them, but they hadn't really went through those storms. So I had to realize I need to meet my teachers where they are and help build their skill set up so
Yeah.
they can be able to become better equipped to deal with the challenges of, students that may not respond the appropriate way the first time. So I went an extra mile, man, and I like to have fun. So when I was at Wilder, my last year at Wilder, the new principal challenged me to do something to have a wow factor.
Okay.
So I co-wrote a rap song with all the administrators. It was 5 of us. We all went to a studio, recorded a song, and then we made a video. And so we did that then. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna try this and do it by myself here. So I wrote a rap song here. It was Good Morning, and I used a Kanye beat. Good Morning song he had to get our kids excited about coming to school.
Yeah.
And so when I did that, man, it took us from here, and we skyrocketed because the
Gotcha.
kids felt a piece of, they felt that safety net, and my principal and my teachers, they love us, they care about us, they're going to give us what we need, and they felt good about coming to school here.
Yeah.
And so just with all that, man, I did the same thing with our teachers. Like, look, we're family, and having those restorative circles, it helped teachers look at things a different way.
Yeah.
They started using those restorative practices in their classroom, and they would come back and tell me, man, I never thought if I just give students the time of day and just talk to them, how much, even though it's taking time away from class, but it benefited me tremendously in the long run, because now I'm building capacity in my students and building that safety in the classrooms. So,
and like you said, it's not even just, it's building capacity in them because you're now build that capacity in yourself.
yeah.
First.
So most importantly, Mason, I live by being fair, firm, consistent, and fun. We're in a stressful environment every day, dealing with kids, and it ain't really the kids that stress us out; it's the adults.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Agree.
it's the adults. But why not have fun doing? Why not go in class and enjoy watching students learn? Why not have fun? Watching your teachers see their success and having fun together as a faculty. We all in this thing together. So, yeah.
So then what would you give for an educator, or excuse me, a school leader, somebody getting fresh into the game? Like, what would you tell them to do if they're coming into a new leadership role, whether it's an AP or assistant principal or a principal? Like, what would be some strategies you would give to them?
I would say most importantly, learn who you are as a leader. Some people get into this leadership role for the wrong reasons. And what I mean by that is, I think to be in a leadership role when you have to lead so many people, you have to learn how to be empathetic. Because we are in the business of helping people, right? And so we have our own struggles. We have our personal demons that we have to deal with. So do our students, the teachers, and so do the parents. And so we have to be able to give those stakeholders a voice, get to know them, and also just be transparent.
Yeah.
Just like we having this transparent conversation. You got to be able to let. So I believe in let your stakeholders know who you are as a person. You know, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a man of God. You know, I have a strong mental health background, and I want you to be safe around me. So to do so, I want to build that psychological safety for you to feel comfortable. Not only coming to work, you're gonna feel supported, you're gonna feel heard, and I want that from our students as well as our parents and community leaders. So I just want them to feel safe, man. And I mean, I hear them out. Sometimes it's hard to do so. It's hard to. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, but as a better leader, man, you gotta learn how to view things from various perspectives. So, and then especially when you make decisions. So one thing throughout my doctoral program, I knew who I was as a leader, but it gave me more, it allowed me to say, it's okay to be the leader who you are, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I read a book, it's called Leadership on the Line, by Hepps and Linsky. Matter of fact,
Leadership on the line. Okay. All right. Good.
Leadership on the
Good.
Line. And then it also says staying alive through the dangers of change,
Okay.
right? The thing that stuck out to me the most about that book is it talked about how to leave from the balcony, right? So just imagine you on a balcony, or you on a balcony, or you on the second floor of a ballroom, or second floor of a club.
Okay.
You looking down on the dance floor, you seeing pretty much a vantage point of what everybody is doing. You can see, people dancing, maybe arguing, spilling their drinks on the floor, being a wallflower.
Yeah.
Right? We can sometimes see the drama unfolding. However, before we make a decision or make some decisions, it's important that you somehow you got to go down to the dance floor and look at the vantage point from the dance floor level.
Yeah.
Look at the
Yeah.
perspective from the dance floor, right? So we got to then look at how teachers and stakeholders view things from that view. Sometimes we got a closer look. We can being involved in the classrooms. Sometimes getting to know the teachers and students allows you to see things a little differently than if you're not.
Agreed.
So the author of the book just talks about how to be more of an effective leader, you got to be able to go back and forth between the balcony and the dance floor to see different viewpoints and different perspectives. And then to be able to make those decisions based on the best needs for everyone.
Yeah.
And so I think that stood out to me the most about me as a leader is being able to give your stakeholders some voice and choice sometimes, but also finding out, instead of me making a decision first because this is what I think needs to happen, let me go in and look at how they're seeing things, and then I can then maybe explain the why behind why I'm making this decision. But sometimes that their why may alter what decision did I make because it's a different vantage point. And then sometimes I may be able to meet things in the middle. And so doing that gives your school, building that psychological safety, hearing your stakeholders out, giving them opportunities to be invested in the decision making in the school. It makes the world of a difference, man.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Oh, and
Look,
then
man.
also too.
Go ahead.
Also, I'm sorry. Also too.
No, you're good.
When you do that, you put some coupons in the bank.
Yes.
Because when you give them a voice, sometimes don't give them too much, but you give them enough. When you have to make those heavy lifting decisions,
yep,
they're gonna know it's coming from a place of what's best for everyone instead of just what's best for them or what's best for me.
I gotta do it.
So,
I gotta do it. So I was thinking, just to add on to the end of that, I was thinking about that yesterday actually, where I was like, people can stomach mandates when everything is not a mandate. Right? Like, so if you're always giving mandates, this is what we better do, this is what you got to do, then eventually people are they're not just going to stand for that, but for so long. But as you do, like you said, man, for the most part, I'm giving choice. You got your autonomy. These are like, so for me, the 4 things that I feel like are the most important, I definitely give 3. But like safety, right? I got a friend of mine who says safety first, because safety second just doesn't make sense, right? Like, it's what that he said. So safety is key. Communication, we got to communicate with our families. Like, it just is what it is. Something going on in the classroom, you got to talk to families. We got to talk to each other about kids. Doing what's best for kids, like in the sense of high levels of learning for all kids. We're going to do whatever is the best practice. We're going to figure it out. We're going to do it. And the last thing is being professional, right? Like, it doesn't matter how my day is, what happened at home, all those things. I have a choice to be professional when I come to work. So for me, like, those are the 4 non-negotiables, right? After that, hey, man, you teach how you want to teach. You do what you need to do. I even have a rule in my building, do not be late to the meetings you're supposed to be at. And for me, what that means is, if you don't have a meeting coming up, then when you show up is when you show up, right? Like, is when you come to work is when you come to work. We're supposed to be there by the time kids get there and be at your door to greet them, and just do that. But people have lives, man. Like, some people, things are going on with their kids in the morning. Like, some people may want to just stop and get some breakfast in the morning. Do that. Have fun. Do what you got to do. If you got a meeting at 8:15, don't be late to the meeting at 8:15. But if you don't have a meeting at 8:15, cool. You do you, right? And I think that has just opened up so much stuff for people to like, yes, even though we work with kids, I am not a kid, right?
Yes.
I am an adult. I'm an adult. And so let me be one. And again, for the most part, man, people are going to do what's right by kids if they can. It is harder to work with the adults, because sometimes I feel like as the adults, we have more excuses as to why we do some of the things that we do, which kids don't have. Like, but I tell people all the time, adults are just kids with power, right? Like, we do the exact thing. I mean, when we get bored at a meeting, we'll pull out a phone, we'll pull out a book, we'll pull out a computer. It's the same with the kids. If the kids are bored in your class, there's a reason why they try to go to the bathroom.
Absolutely.
I mean, it just is what it is. So, is there anything else you want to add for the audience before we kind of taper this thing off?
I would say, again, man, just have fun. Just have fun with your students. So, one thing I live by is students should have fun learning. Educators should enjoy educating, and it should feel rewarding to administrators and when you're empowering others to be successful, man. Just have fun, man. Life is too short for us to be allowing things to stress us out. Take care of yourself. Have your do whatever you need to do to treat yourself well, physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right. So, quick lightning round of questions. You already gave us a book. Usually I ask you what's a book that you would point us to. You gave us a good one there. I think a question that I like is, if you could sit down with any 5 individuals, so you're about to have a dinner, who would be your 5 individuals, dead or alive, that you were like, yeah, man, I would have to sit down with them and just listen to them. I'd be a fly on the wall and just listen.
Yeah. I would say definitely former President Barack Obama, man. I
Okay.
would love to just be in his presence, man, and hear him and get some of his wisdom. I would say probably Maya Angelou or Oprah Winfrey.
Okay. Okay.
It's a lot of history, a lot of wisdom between those two young ladies.
Yeah.
Um, and so this is gonna sound crazy, but so I'm a music person, right?
Okay.
I love music. My favorite artist is Kanye West.
Okay.
He's a musical genius, but man, that boy is so controversial.
Yeah, he is.
But I watched the documentary. I would love to understand more about him
Yeah.
and just and have a conversation with him about using his platform in a more positive way.
Gotcha.
Um, um, and then I would say my two grandfathers.
Okay.
They were both nurturers. Um, they took care of the home and they had non-traditional roles, which was crazy. Both my grandparents cooked,
Okay.
you know, but they knew how to fix stuff. They knew how to garden. They knew. I learned how to be more of a complete man from my grandfathers. So I would love to just bend their ear to learn more about what it took for them to overcome adversity and to how to become a better man. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Oh,
Those are
oh,
all
oh,
great
oh,
choices.
oh, and Master P. Master P is, man, he is a entrepreneur genius.
Yep.
I want to know, I need some, tell me, give me some of your wisdom, man.
I was just
Drop some
listening
nuggets
to
on
an
me.
interview with him the other day. Yeah, he is. He is entrepreneur wise. That man is. He's doing it.
Yes.
He is doing it.
Yeah, man.
Last question for you: who would you like to see on the podcast? But it's got to be someone you can help us get.
Dr. Herb Monroe.
Oh yes.
My
Yep.
good brother, Dr. Herb Monroe, man,
Yep.
he's such a inspiration to many people, man. And again, he showed me it was okay to be who I am as a leader. He helped me. He helps others just grow and mature. And yeah, he would be my top choice as someone I would love to listen to speak.
Gotcha. Yeah, he is on my list. So I'm gonna reach out to him. Hope I can get on his schedule, man. You know, Dr. Monroe, that man
Yeah,
running around all the time.
he
Um,
do. He do.
yeah. But yeah, I'm gonna reach out to him. I'm gonna get him on here because I think that's gonna be a beautiful thing to hear. So,
Yes, sir.
um, Dr. Thor, I appreciate you. To all of our audience, thank you for this opportunity. You always jumping on and listen to our different individuals that we bring on. Remember, these are hot conversations. We're trying to be honest, open, and transparent. And hopefully, what we brought to you today is something that you can take with you, and just help you on your leadership journey. Remember, you don't have it all together. But you're going to keep growing, and there's going to be somebody coming up behind you who's going to want to take what you learned. So keep on passing it back and helping those around. Hope you have an incredible day. We love you. Keep leading, and we'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr.